शान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Hearty welcome to all the devotees. So again coming back to old way online. So in the previous weeks we were discussing from third canto. We started with chapter 30 about the activities performed by a person in the mode of ignorance, tamaguna. Then from chapter 31 we discussed about the life of a person in the mode of passion, and then we discussed about the life of a person in the mode of goodness from chapter 32. Then in the previous two classes we discussed about study of Sankhya and the process and perfection of Jnana Yoga from chapter 26 and 27. So today we'll be discussing from description of Tapasya and Vairagya as part of Astanga-Yoga, the process of Astanga-Yoga, how, when and where one practices Astanga-Yoga and for what purpose one should practice Astanga-Yoga, how one should perform Astanga-Yoga. These are the few details we will discuss today, and next week we will discuss the continuation of Astanga-Yoga, where what will be the perfection of Astanga-Yoga, how different people being influenced by different motives perform Astanga-Yoga, etc. we will discuss next week. So with that background, so we'll start from Canto 3, chapter 28. So, but anyway, in one way we are not fortunate enough to meet each other, but at the same time we have a special opportunity today in order to use our slides. There we will not be able to use our slides, so we generally have dialectic way of presenting, discussion only. So this chapter is a special chapter in the Bhagavatam, and why it is special we will understand today. In due course of our presentation, all of you will realize how and why it is special in the entire Bhagavatam. And here in this chapter, Lord Kapila describes the process and perfection of Astanga-Yoga. In the 28th chapter, meditation in the Astanga-Yoga system is described in detail, by which the yogi attains liberation without effort. So before discussing Astanga-Yoga in chapter 28, Lord Kapila already discussed about Bhakti in chapter 25, which we are to discuss. In the upcoming weeks, we are going to discuss that. And he spoke about Sankhya, process and perfection of Sankhya in chapter 26 and 27. Now the Lord is going to begin Astanga-Yoga in chapter 28. So a quick summary of what we have discussed in the previous discussions. At the same time, traditionally, as part of Varnashrama system, how the lifestyle used to be and where what they used to practice, what they used to do, what they used to learn, etc. Here is a brief overview as per my little understanding is presented. During Brahmacharya ashram, around 6 to 8 years, after performing Upanayana ceremony, when the children are sent to Gurukul in order to study under a able and bona fide guru, they study so many things, but primarily they study Sankhya in the Gurukul, wherein they learn about the fundamental principles of the material nature. What they learn at the end of the studies in Gurukul, the student is supposed to be educated about the 28 tattvas: Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala and Karma. As we study in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction that Bhagavad Gita principally talks about 5 tattvas. It teaches us about Ishvara, it teaches us about Jiva, it teaches us about Prakriti, also about Kala and Karma. Ishvara is the Supreme Lord, Jiva is the living entity, Prakriti the material nature made up of the 3 modes, Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, Tamaguna, and Kala, the time which instigates Prakriti into the manifestation of the universes and our bodies, and Kala instigates all of us so that we can perform activities. Being influenced by time, we are performing all our activities. That is called karma. So they are the 5 tattvas from Bhagavad Gita. But how do we perform karma? Karma is performed by the body, which is made up of 24 elements. The 24 elements are subgrouped as 4 antakaranas made up of mind, intelligence, ego and chetana, man, buddhi, ahankara, chetana, and 5 jnanendriyas, the knowledge acquiring senses, the ears, the skin, the eyes, the tongue, the nostril, and 5 karmendriyas, the mouth, the hands, the legs, anus and genital, and 5 tanmatras, the 5 qualities of the Panchamahabhutas, that is Shabda, Rupa, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, and 5 Panchamahabhutas, earth, water, fire, ether. So all these 24 elements come together, manifest or makes our body, with which we perform all the different variety of activities, which are called karma. So what are the different roles and responsibilities of all these 28 elements is taught as part of Sankhya. By the end, the student complete the studies will be well aware of what is what, who does what, etc. And also educated about the practice of karma, jnana, yoga and bhakti. So everything is taught in the Gurukul only. The students, they learn about what to do, how to do for one's livelihood. Everything is taught in the Gurukul. At the same time, what to do and how to do for the purpose of attaining perfection is also taught in Gurukul. The teachings about karma, jnana, Astanga-Yoga and bhakti are all very nicely presented in the Gurukul itself. So these are the principal teachings that are supposed to be given to the student in the Gurukul. Then, after completing the education, the student returns home, then gets married, becomes a Grihastha. Then, based on whatever knowledge one had received in the Gurukul, with that knowledge, one has to lead one's life. If one is not at all studied anything in the Gurukul, that person is said to be in the mode of tamas, ignorance, and he simply performs vikarma. In the Gurukul, we study what to do and how to do. Since he has not studied anything, he will do everything in the opposite order. Vikarma, viruddha rupena karma. So, as a result of performing all such activities, sinful activities, such a person goes to hell and takes birth in the lower species. And finally, after passing through all the 80 lakh species, one day eventually becomes human being. And by the way, while going through Naraka and other lower species, he understands that I should not do such kind of sinful activities once again. He slowly raises his consciousness from ignorance to passion. So in the passion also still performs vikarma because he is motivated by selfish desires for one's own mind and body, and for the purpose of fulfilling desires in relation to the opposite sex, he simply performs sinful activities and also goes to hell and takes birth in lower species sometimes, but in general takes birth as a human being again. So like that. But having understood that one need to take shelter of Shastra, one need to follow the instructions of Shastra, with that understanding, when he starts practicing Shastra, he is situated in the mode of goodness. Then he performs Sakama Karma. That means whatever rules and regulations, whatever prescriptions that are given in the Vedic literature, he uses all of them to become more and more prosperous and happy in this world, and also perform special rituals in order to go to heaven. So as a result of leading such kind of a household life, generally they take birth in aristocratic family in their next life. Sometimes because they have performed so many special rituals in order to go to Swarga, they either go to Pitraloka or Svargaloka. Sometimes, not necessarily always, but sometimes they go by good fortune. But if they understand purpose of life is not just to perform Sakama Karma, perform all the Vedic rituals for one's own enjoyment, instead one understand that one should perform all the Vedic rules and regulations with detachment, Nishkama Karma, for the benefit of the society and country and humanhood, manhood, etc. Such kind of person is said to be performing Nishkama Karma, a philanthropist, we can say. So that person, as a result of dedicating one's life completely in the service of society and mankind, will go to Pitraloka or Svargaloka. After the piety is over, after the pious rites are over, then takes birth in aristocratic family and again continues such kind of humanitarian works, again goes to Pitraloka and comes back. So like that, following all the rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals. Not ordinary philanthropy, but philanthropy guided by Vedic literature. So in that way. But the best person, the best form of Grihastha is that person who performs Nishkama Karma Yoga, performs all the activities as a matter of duty in the Grihastha order, but offers all the results in the service of the Supreme Lord. So that person is said to be Nishkama Karma Yogi. So Shastra says that for a person, whoever performs Nishkama Karma Yoga throughout their tenure in the Grihastha ashram, if they die, they will be promoted to heaven. But before death, they make up their mind that I don't want to go to heaven. They make their resolve that I don't want to go to heaven, but I want to work hard in order to attain liberation. They are qualified to take on to renunciation. Those people who have courage to say no to heavenly opulences and heavenly enjoyment, only they are qualified to take on to Vanaprastha order and Sannyasa order. So thus, rejecting heavenly enjoyment, focusing on the attainment of liberation, they takes on to renounced order of life, either Vanaprastha or Sannyasa, or first Vanaprastha and then eventually to Sannyasa, so that they can practice Jnana Yoga and eventually Astanga Yoga, or sometimes they can directly practice Astanga Yoga in order to attain Sayujya Mukti. This is how Shastra prescribes who has to do what. This is a simple understanding. Those who say no to sinful activities in the mode of ignorance, they are qualified to raise their conscience to mode of passion. And they don't perform gross sinful activities, but sometimes because they are motivated by selfish desire, they may perform some superficial sinful activities. As a result, they take birth in the human life only. But if they say no to that also, then they are qualified to hear Shastra. They develop faith to hear Shastra, where they perform Vedic rituals and follow Vedic rules and regulations. As a result, They may get birth in aristocratic family, or sometimes they may promoted to Pitruloka or heaven. But if they say no to their selfish enjoyment, they are qualified to extend their life in the service of society and nation, following the rules and regulations of Vedic culture. If they say no to that, as a result of that, they are qualified to go to heaven, because the entire life they live a life of selflessness, life of sacrifice. Shastra says that such kind of people are promoted to heaven at the end of their life. But if they have the courage to say no to heavenly enjoyment, they are qualified to take on to renounced order, because they have already cultivated the detachment throughout the Grihastha order. Now they can enter into Vanaprastha or Sannyasa order, so that they can live happily in the Vanaprastha order without any grudging or without any remorse. And they are qualified to practice Jnana Yoga or Astanga Yoga in order to attain perfection in the form of Sahyajya Mukti or Sarishti or Salokya. So then they take to the renounced order, either Vanaprastha or Sannyasa. Then they can practice Jnana Yoga or Astanga Yoga 24/7. So there are some people who perform Sakama Jnana. Even after entering to renounced order, they practice Sakama Jnana with a selfish motivated Jnana. They become great scholars and they get Pujala Pratishtha as a result of their renounced, as a result of their detachment and renounced order and austerities, etc. They'll go to Swarga and get aristocratic birth in the next life. Because still, even though in spite of going to renounced order, they still are hankering for Pujala Pratishtha and scholarship. They are not qualified to get Mukti. But on the other hand, those people, those jnanis who do not have any desire for scholarship, who do not have any desire for Pujala Pratishtha, they practice Nishkama Jnana Yoga. No material ambitions, no material desires. Thus, by leading a life of austerities and cultivating jnana, which one had studied in Gurukul, because in the Gurukul only they have studied about Sankhya, that is jnana. They have studied about tapasya, how to practice tapasya, etc. Now they are implementing in the Vanaprastha Sannyasa order, along with the practice of bhakti. Such kind of person will attain Sahyajya Mukti, impersonal liberation, because that is what their desire. They perform all these Nishkama Karma activities as a householder and Nishkama Jnana activities as a renounced order in order to attain Sahyajya Mukti. That is what they attain. So, such kind of a Jnani, after perfecting Jnana, having come to Jivan Mukta platform, they have two options. They can wait for their natural death so that they can attain impersonal liberation, or they can take shelter of Astanga Yoga in order to leave the body quickly and attain liberation very quickly. That option is available for the jnanis who performed jnana, who perfected jnana, who came to the platform of Brahmabhuta platform, self-realization. Then by taking shelter of Astanga Yoga, they can attain liberation instantly, or they have to wait for natural death. So some people, after practicing jnana, take on to Astanga Yoga and perfect their life, attain moksha, or some people immediately after entering into renounced order, either Vanaprastha or Sannyasa, they immediately start practicing Astanga Yoga in order to attain liberation, because they have already attained thorough detachment from this material world. They don't want to stay anymore in this material world. Such kind of people practice Astanga Yoga immediately. But within that Astanga Yoga, there are two categories of people. Some practice Sakama Astanga Yoga with some selfish motive. Such kind of people attains 8 mystic siddhis and great scholarship, also gets Pujala Pratishtha. Because they are practicing Astanga Yoga with some selfish motives, they are not qualified to attain Sahyajya Mukti. Instead, they goes to Swarga and eventually they get aristocratic birth in their next life. But those who are completely dedicated their life with full of detachment in order to attain Sahyajya Mukti, they do not have any selfish desire such as attaining mystic siddhis or scholarship or Pujala Pratishtha. They simply lead a life of complete renunciation and cultivating jnana and by the practice of Astanga-Yoga, which one had studied in Gurukul, along with the practice of Bhakti, one eventually attains Sahajya Mukti. And according to their desire, they also enters into Vaikuntha with Sarishti or Salokya Mukti. So this is the traditional way of practicing their life according to Varnashram system. As a brahmachari, they go to Gurukul, study Shastra, especially study 28 Sankhya Yoga, and also study about what is karma, what is jnana, what is yoga, what is bhakti, how to practice them, like that. Then they, after completing their education, they come home, get married. They are supposed to be practicing Nishkama Karma Yoga. As a result of that, they developed enough detachment. Then they take on to renounced order, either Vanaprastha or Vanaprastha and then Sannyas. There they practice Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga along with Bhakti Yoga. As a result of that, they attain Sahajya Mukti. Sometimes by good fortune, they also attain Sarishti or Salokya Mukti. This is the traditional way of attaining perfection. But while doing all these practices, they should also practice Bhakti from the very beginning. Without Bhakti, none of these practices can give one the expected results. So today, now let us discuss about how to practice Astanga Yoga. Astanga Yoga is basically has 8 angas: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So let us try to discuss about what are these 8 stages of Astanga Yoga, what one is supposed to do in each and every stage, and what kind of lifestyle they should lead, etc., etc. Let us get into the chapter. So in the previous classes, I used to discuss referring to the book. I was presenting summarily the details of all the verses like a story type, like a prose. But today, since we are using slides also, I will recite all the slokas and I will explain the slokas so that we can use the opportunity of this online class. So starting from sloka 1, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vakshe Sabijasya Drupatmaje Mano Yenaiva Vidina Prasannam Yati Satpatam. So here Lord Kapila is saying that now I shall speak about the characteristics of Astanga Yoga, which is dependent on Bhakti, by following which the mind attains joyful spiritual path. The mind becomes joyful while practicing, and eventually the soul enters into Sahajya Mukti at the end of the practice. So basically Lord Kapila now going to discuss about Astanga Yoga mixed with Bhakti. So now, for those people who are dedicated their life in order to attain Sahajya Mukti by the practice of Astanga Yoga, but before actually practicing Astanga Yoga, one need to lead the life of Grihastha order very sanely, as it is indicated here. Basically, the first two limbs of Astanga Yoga, Yama and Niyama. Niyama means the rules which are supposed to be followed. Yama means the prohibitions which are not supposed to be, which are supposed to be avoided. So these Yama and Niyama rules and regulations are supposed to be practiced when one is a Grihastha. As long as one is leading a household order, they need to practice Yama and Niyama. Then after completing all the household responsibilities, after getting enough detachment, then they should take on to renounced order, Vanaprastha or Sannyasa. They should go to a forest, find a suitable place in order to practice the remaining parts of the Astanga Yoga. So what does this Yama and Niyama contains? In first 3-4 verses gives a detailed explanation. Not details, but a quick summary of that rules and regulations are mentioned here. Swadharma charanam sakya Vidharmacha nivartanam Daivallabdena santosha Atmavid charanarchanam. It is said that one must follow one's duties of Varnashrama to the best of one's ability. So basically now one is in household order. One may be a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, whoever may be. They should practice their Varna duties properly. Swadharma Acharanam Sakya. That means they should practice their Varna duties. A Brahmana householder is supposed to practice Brahmanical duties. A Kshatriya householder is supposed to practice Kshatriya duties. Vaishya householder is supposed to practice Vaishya duties, like that. And avoid sin. Vidharmatna Nivartitam. One should never ever perform sinful activities in the household order. And one should be satisfied with what comes of its own accord. Daiva labdena santosha. Whatever comes by the order of the destiny, one should be satisfied. Because if one is satisfied with whatever one has more time for spiritual practices. If one is not satisfied, one has to work hard to get more and more to fulfill their desires. Then all the time and energy goes in the attainment of objects. So one will be left with no time for spiritual practices. That's why one should be satisfied with whatever comes of its own accord, according to one's destiny. Daiva labdena santosha. And finally, one should worship the lotus feet of those who know the Lord. Atmavit charana archanam. One should take shelter of the devotees and like-minded persons and associate with them and serve them, so that one develops their qualities and characteristics. It's like that. 3 verses, verse number 2, 3, 4, and 2 syllables in verse number 5 explains about the rules and regulations, yama and niyama. So in verse 2, 3, 4, there are 4 items which talk about niyama, which are rules. Swadharma Acharanam Sakya Vidharmacha Nivartitam Daiva Labdena Santosha Atmavi Charanarchanam. Yama, items in 4 and 5 are part of Yama. The regulations are mentioned in the verse number 4 and 5. Verse number 2, 3, 4 talks about Niyama, and 4 and 5 talks about Yama, the regulations. What are the regulations? Non-violence. One should never commit violence against living entities. And one should never speak lies. One should never steal. One should not accept more than necessary. One should practice celibacy. One should never indulge in loose conduct. And one should remain silent. And these are 6 are the regulations. Then what are the other rules? Gramya dharma nivartischa moksha dharma ratistata mita medyadanam shashvat vivikta kshema sevanam. One should avoid duties that lead to material attachment. Gramya dharma nivartischa. Gramya dharma means the duties in regards to dharma, artha, kama, which are meant to fulfill one's material desires. Such kind of duties should be kept at far distance. And one should be constantly absorbed in those activities which lead to liberation. One should perform all those activities which take one to moksha. One should not be too much attached to activities of dharma, artha, kama. Instead, one should be attached to the activities of moksha in that way. One should eat pure food in moderate quantities. Mita medya adanam. One should not eat too much. One should eat moderately, but pure food, not the contaminated food, not the sinful food. And one should always live in a secluded, peaceful place. Vivikta kshema sevanam. One should stay in the association of the like-minded people. Seclusion means only in the association of like-minded people, not with the people of diverse mentalities. And one should remain peaceful. One should not be too much attached, as too much agitated by the surroundings. So these are some of the rules one should follow as a householder. And Gramya dharma means dharma, artha, kama. According to the Smriti, moderate quantity of food means the following. One should fill half of the stomach with food. What do you mean by moderate eating? Half of the stomach should be filled with food, and 1/4 should be filled with water, and 1/4 should remain with air for freedom of movement. So this is the moderate eating, not eating to the extent of the neck. So for a yogi, or for anyone, for a devotee or for sadhaka who is interested in attaining liberation, should follow this regulation. One should select a place which is solitary and also free from fear. One should not stay in a place which is always fearful. If one is always affected by fear, one can never ever focus on one's sadhana. So in that way. And further rules and regulations. Ahimsa satyam asteyam yavad artha parigraha brahmacharyam tapassaucham swadhyaya purusharchanam. One should practice non-violence, truthfulness, and avoid theft. One should accept only what is necessary. Whatever is necessary in order to live comfortably, one should accept that much only, and not more than that for living. Because we want more and more, our life goes in earning more and more only. So for that, with that intention. And practice celibacy, practice austerity, practice cleanliness, and also one should continuously study the Vedas and worship the Supreme Lord. Swadhyaya Purusha Archanam. These are the regular activities, day-to-day activities one should follow as a Grihastha. In the Gurukul anyway, one does all these things. That means the study, Vedic study and other things. But as a Grihastha, one should follow all these rules and regulations. Then only one will attain the necessary detachment so that one can take Vanaprastha or Sannyas order and one will be able to continue. Entering into Vanaprastha or Sannyasa is not so difficult, but continuing is very difficult. Unless until one has a detachment temperament, one cannot continue. So the temperament will be cultivated when we follow all these rules and regulations as a Grihastha. Since the time of one's marriage to the time one takes on to renunciation, one need to follow all these set of rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations are called as Yama and Niyama. Niyama are rules, Yama are regulations. So then, after living a life of detachment in the household order, then one is qualified to take on to Vanaprastha or Sannyasa. After taking Vanaprastha order or Sannyasa order, one should go to a forest. There find a suitable place in order to practice Astanga-Yoga. And that Astanga-Yoga will continue with Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara and other things. And the description about them is mentioned now. Maunam Sadasana Jaya, Stairyam Pranajaya Shanai, Pratyaharas Chendriyanam, Vishayan Manasa Hrudi. So one should observe silence. Maunam. So Maunam is part of the regulations. This one phrase is part of the previous discussion. And afterwards starts asana. One should attain steadiness by mastering correct asanas. Sad asana jaya stairyam. One should be able to control one's body. The body is controlled. Body itself is unsteady. Many times body does not allow us to sit at one place, stand at one place continuously for a long time. The bodily inconveniences can be regulated by becoming expert in performing asanas. Having gone to forest, after finding out a suitable place, one should actually practice asana, especially the swastika asana or padmasana. So eventually the body becomes stable. That means body does not instigate us to, okay, get up, move here, move there, and not like that. So the purpose of asanas is to steady the body. And then one should practice the control of breath, that is pranayama, pranajaya. Then the senses and the mind and intelligence are controlled by pranayama. Just like the body is controlled by asanas, the senses and mind and intelligence are controlled by the pranayama. Then the mind should focus on pranayama. Puraka, Rechaka, Kumbhaka, etc. One should focus on that. The mind becomes steady. And then gradually one should withdraw the senses from material objects to the heart using the mind. So, in order to become stable in pranayama, in order to control the mind, pranayama alone does not help. Even though while practicing pranayama, the senses might divert one here and there. the mind one might take one here and there. So first one should control the senses. My mind is so powerful, we cannot directly control the mind. So we should control the senses. The senses generally look for something to get from outside world. The eyes want to see something, ears want to hear something, the tongue want to taste something, the mouth, the nostril want to smell something nice, the hand want to touch something, etc., etc. The five senses are need to be fed from outside world. That is called ahara. If they are fed excessively, that is called atyahara. If they are fed internally, not from outside world, but they are fed internally within the core of the heart, that is called pratyahara. The demands of the senses are fulfilled from the heart itself, within the heart itself, that is called pratyahara. That means the senses are not looking anything outside. The eyes does not want to look anything outside. The nostril does not want to smell anything from outside. The ears does not want to hear anything from outside. The ears only want to hear Om. The Om syllable which might be pronounced by the yogi while practicing Astanga-Yoga is only focusing on the Om. The eyes are half closed. They are neither looking, not looking anywhere outside, etc., etc. So first the yogi is supposed to control the senses. When the senses become steady by the practice of pratyahara, slowly by the practice of other sadhanas like dharana, dhyana, samadhi, the intelligence and mind also becomes completely controlled. So like that, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other will be controlled by taking shelter of all these different sadhanas. Asana, one should attain steadiness by mastering correct asanas, steadiness of the body. And pranayama, one should control the breath. One should keep the breathing under control by practicing puraka, rechaka, kumbhaka, etc. And pratyahara, withdraw the senses from the material objects and turn them toward the heart using the mind. Then, after controlling the body, after controlling the breathing, after controlling the senses, in order to control the mind, then one should practice dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. They are mentioned in the next verse. Swadhishnanam ekadeshe manasa prana dharanam vaikuntalila vidhyananam samadhanam tatatmana. One should fix the prana at one spot among the various chakras by the mind. So basically by the process of dharana, one should raise the prana from Mooladhara chakra to Swadhisthana chakra, Anath chakra, Ajna chakra, all the way up to forehead. So like that, the raising the prana from one place, lower part up to top of our part will be accomplished by dharana and also dhyana. And while practicing dhyana, one should meditate on the pastimes of the spiritual world. One should meditate on the pastimes of the Supreme Lord while looking into the form of Paramatma in the core of heart, in the core of the heart. Basically, dharana and dhyana can be accomplished by meditating on the form of Paramatma while remembering various pastimes of the Lord while looking into the form of the Supreme Lord. Then, by raising the prana from Mooladhara chakra to Ajna chakra, and by meditating, by making the mind focus on the various pastimes of Supreme Lord by looking into the Paramatma form, the mind and intelligence are completely controlled. When the mind is completely controlled, 100% is controlled, then one enters into Samadhi. In Samadhi state, one will realize that one is Atma, not the body anymore. The symptom of a person who had attained Samadhi means one will realize that, not theoretically understanding, but one realize that one is the Atma, not the body, neither the gross body nor the subtle body anymore. That is the state of Samadhi. So dharana means fix the prana at one spot among the various chakras by the mind, starting with the Mooladhara chakra. Dhyan, then dhyana. One should meditate on the limbs starting with the feet of the Lord along with his pastimes. Then one should then attain the concentration of the mind. The complete concentration of the mind, the cessation of the mind along with the gross body and subtle body is called samadhi. Then one comes to the platform of Atma. One says, I am Atma. One not only says, one realizes that one is Atma. So that is the state of samadhi. So like this, as a grahastha, after practicing yama and niyama, after taking on to vanaprastha or sannyasa, after going to forest, after finding a suitable place, when one practices asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, then one comes to the samadhi platform, where one realizes that one is Atma, not the body anymore. Few more additional details. The same repetition of the 8 limbs. Eter annaischa pratibir mano dushtam asatpatam buddhya yunjita shanakair jita prano hi atandrita. Also, engage in other methods such as charity and vows with the intelligence, having controlled the pranas. So, as a grahastha, one also perform other activities such as giving charity and practices some vatas, vows, etc. Then after going to forest, one should control the pranas with complete attention. Then one gradually engages the wicked mind, the mind which is always distracted, which leads to one material life in meditation. Then by the practice of asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, one engages mind in meditation. Satpatam, that satpata that leads to liberation. So if the mind is still contaminated, then one should try to control it by with intelligence do acts of charity and vow, and by the control of prana and other things. Then after going to a forest, where one should practice Astanga-Yoga, what kind of place one should select, that is mentioned here. Suchau deshe pratishtapya vijitasana asanam tasmin swasti samasena rujukaya samabhyasat. Mastering the asanas, one should establish his seat in a clean place, Suchau deshe, very clean place, and sitting in swastika asana, keeping the body straight, one should practice controlling the breath. So what kind of place should be selected? Suchau deshe, clean place. How one should practice asanas? Keeping the body straight by sitting in the swastika asana. And then one should practice pranayama. One should practice control of the breath by mastering the asanas, establish the seat in a clean place, sit in swastika asana, keep the body straight. So what is the meaning of what kind of place one should sit? The asana should be made up of kusha grass covered with deer skin and covered with cloth. So it should be made with kusha grass so that the forest insects are repellent with kusha grass and deer skin. They never ever climb onto kusha grass mat and also deer skin. That's why the yogis, when they go to forest in order to practice Astanga-Yoga, they make a seat with kusha grass mat and covered on top of that deer skin, and top of that there is a small cloth so that it is not pricking. So with that intention. On that, he should sit in swastika position. What is swastika position? Placing the foot of one leg on the thigh of the other. This is basically Padmasana. The left foot on the right thigh and right foot on the left thigh. Then he should sit and control the breath. Pranayama. Pranasya shodayen margam pura kumbhakare chakai pratikulena vachittam yata stiram achanchalam. One should purify the passages of prana by inhaling, holding and exhaling the breath, or reversing the process so that the unsteady mind becomes steady. So how to practice pranayama? One should purify the passage of the prana by practice of puraka, inhaling through the left nostril, kumbhaka, holding the breath, rechaka, exhaling through the right nostril, and then holding the breath and taking the breath in through the right nostril, that is rechaka, and then holding the breath, kumbhaka, then exhaling through the left nostril, puraka. The order gets reversed. So that like that one should practice pranayama. Manochirasyad virajam jitashwasasya yogina vayu agnibhyam yataloham dhamtam tyajati vaimalam. Very soon the mind of the yogi who controls his breath will become pure, just as heated gold gives up impurities by air and fire. Just like gold is put onto fire becomes pure, by the practice of pranayama and other things, the mind becomes pure. So, how does the mind gets pure? That is indicated here. Pranayamer dahed doshan, dharana bischa kilbishan, pratyaharena samsargan, dhyanena nivasaran guhan. By controlling the breath, one burns up the faults in the doshas of the body. By pranayama, the doshas of the body are destroyed. Kapha, vata, pitta are destroyed by the practice of pranayama. That's why in the nowadays, the pranayama is very popular all over the world. Because by the practice of pranayama, the body becomes more and more healthy. So that is even indicated here. The bodily doshas, kapha, vata, pitta are destroyed. And by dharana, by pratyahara, one destroys the association sense objects. Association sense objects are destroyed. Normally, senses are get attracted to outside world. By pratyahara, we are not allowing the senses to go outside. The senses attraction to outside world is destroyed. And by dharana, the sins are destroyed. So by focusing the mind on the form of Paramatma, one's mind is not focused on sinful activities. So sins are destroyed. And by dhyana, by meditation, one destroys uncontrollable qualities such as attraction and repulsion. The like and hatred, such kind of qualities are destroyed by the practice of dhyana. So these are the benefits of, immediate benefits of practicing Astanga-Yoga. Pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana will make our body good. The sinful tendencies, sinful activities are destroyed, and mind becomes completely controlled. It is not disturbed by uncontrollable activities. Yada manaswam virajam yogena susumaitam kastam bhagavato dhyayet swa nasagrava. When the mind becomes purified thus by the practice of asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and steady by yama and other angas, looking at the tip of the nose, one should then meditate on the complete form of the Lord. So, after living a life of dedication, living a life of detachment as a householder, then after taking onto Vanaprastha or sannyas, after going to forest, finding a suitable place, making a asan, sitting on swasti asan position, and then controlling the breath, controlling the senses by pratyahara, then one should practice dharana. So in that dharana, one should meditate upon the complete form of Paramatma in the core of the heart. Dharana means meditating on the complete form of the Supreme Lord, who is there in the heart of all of us as Paramatma. When the mind becomes steady by the practice of yama and niyama and other angas, then one should meditate on the Supreme Lord by looking at the tip of the nose to avoid sleep and wandering of the mind. So both the eyes should focus on the tip of the nose so that one will not fall asleep and one's mind does not go here and there. Then within the core of the heart, one should meditate on the form of Paramatma. So what will be the form of Paramatma? What is the description of that Paramatma is very nicely presented from verse number 13 to 18. So let us go through this. Prasannavadanambojam Padma Garbarunekshanam Nilotpala Dalashyamam Shanka Chakra Gadadaram. One should meditate on that form which is with joyful lotus face, red lotus eyes, and complexion like a blue lotus, holding conch, chakra, and club. So then one should meditate on the form of Paramatma, who is very joyful. He has lotus face, red lotus eyes, and complexion like that of a blue lotus, and holding Shanka Chakra, Gada Padma. So the meditation as part of Dharana, which is the sixth limba of Astanga-Yoga, is as good as Smaranam for a devotee. When we go to the temple, we see the form of the deity. And for some time, we completely gaze at the beautiful form of the Lord. The same thing the yogi does. Within the core of his heart, he gazes at the complete form of the Paramatma. This meditation on the Lord, the third anga of the nine-limbed bhakti process known as Smaranam, become the sixth dharana and the seventh dhyana process of Astanga-Yoga. In yoga, this is for attaining liberation, for attaining Sahajya Mukti. Taking this opportunity, Lord Kapila described the form of the Lord used by both devotees and yogis for the purpose of meditation. Though only three items are mentioned in the Lord's hands, the fourth item, the lotus, also should be included. The shloka only talks about Shankha Chakra, Gada. Padma also we need to include. So this is the form of Paramatma, who is like the blue lotus, eyes are like red lotus, and his complexion is like blue lotus. His face is very joyful and smiling, and he had 4 hands holding Shankha Chakra, Gada, Padma. This is the beautiful description of the form of Paramatma. Then, what are the more attributes of the Paramatma form? Lasat Pankaja Kinjalka, Pita Kausheya Vasasam, Srivasta Vakshasam Brajat, Kaustuba Mukta Kandaram. He wears silk clothes, the color of glowing lotus pollen. Lord wears yellow silken cloth, yellow pitambara dhoti. Okay. Has Srivasta on his chest. Lord has Srivasta on his chest on the right side. Srivasta mark is there. And had the brilliant Kaustuba on his neck. So this is the Kaustuba jewel. Here is the Kaustuba jewel, the brilliant Kaustuba jewel on his neck. And tied with a golden thread. The jewel is tied with the golden thread. So this is the beautiful description of the form of Paramatma. Further it is mentioned, Matta Dvirepa Kalaya Paritram Vanamalaya Parardyahara Valaya Kiritangada Nopuram. He wears a garland filled with the sweet humming of intoxicated bees. Matta Dvirepa Kalaya. Dvirepa means those insects will have 2 wings. So with the wings, with the movement of the wings, they are actually producing nice music. So he is holding a wonderful Vanamala, a forest flower garland. Because all the flowers have a lot of fragrance and a lot of nectar. The honeybees are hovering around the form of the Supreme Lord, making beautiful musical sounds. He wears priceless necklaces, bracelets, crown, armbands, and anklets. All those things you can see here. Priceless necklaces, armlets, bracelets, mukut, earrings, etc., etc. All wonderful, beautiful ornaments are described. So like that, his beautiful form is presented. And then Kanchi Gunollas Churonim Hrudayam Boja Vistaram Darshaniyatmam Shantam Mano Nayana Vardhanam. His hips shine with the cords of his belt. Lord wears a beautiful belt. So with which the Lord's form looks very beautiful. He sits in the lotus heart of the devotees. The Paramatma is always situated in the heart of the devotees. When our heart becomes pure like a lotus, then we will be able to see the Paramatma. If our heart is covered with dust, we will not be able to see the form of Paramatma. It's like that. He is most attractive to see. Darshaniyatamam is the object of our vision. When we look at the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord, our eyes, our mind will be attracted to him, want to see more and more. Only when our heart is pure, we will be want to see more and more. It's like that. And that Lord is completely peaceful, is not at all agitated, and increases the joy of the mind and eyes. Mano Nayana Vardhanam. The happiness of the eyes and the mind increases by looking at the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord. This is what we should get when we come to temple, when we see the deity form, especially on the festival days, when the lordships are given new outfits, new dress, and new decoration. All the devotees are eager to have darshan of the Lord for long hours. So there is a competition. I want to be in the first row. I want to be in the first row. It's like that. Then it further continues. Apivya darshanam shashvat sarvalokanam askrutam santam vaisi kaishore brutya nugraha kataram. He is beautiful and worshipped by all people. The Lord Swami is very beautiful and he is worshipped by all people. Sarva Loka Namaskrutam. He is eternally situated in as at 15 years old. Shashvat Kaishora Vaisi. The Lord is always 15 years old. His age does not increase. Maybe we take some questions at the end of the discussion. It may disturb the flow. And is eager to bless his servants. The Lord is always eager to bless the servants. Bhrutya Anugraha Kataram. See the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord who is always eager to bless his devotees. So it's like that. Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasam Punya Shloka Yashaskaram Jayad Devasam Samagranam Yavanna Chavate Mana. One should meditate on this form of the Lord with all his limbs, who is worthy of glorification, who increases the fame of the devotees, and until the mind does not deviate. As long as mind can continue to focus on the complete form of the Lord, one should practice to meditate on that. So when mind becomes steady on the form of the Supreme Lord, then one can enter into dhyana, the next stage. Till then, one need to meditate on the complete form of the Supreme Lord. And this meditation on the complete form of the Supreme Lord is called as dharana. And that beautiful description of the Lord's form was mentioned. And then dhyana means, then after looking at the complete form of the Supreme Lord, then one should meditate on each and every limb, starting with the lotus feet, the lotus legs, thighs, abdomen, chest, neck, face, within the face, eyes, nostril, mouth, etc. etc. That step by step progressive increase in order. One should slowly meditate. That is called dhyana. That is mentioned in the next section. Sthitam vrajantam asinam shayanam va guhashayam prekshaniye hitam dhyayet shuddha bhavena chetasa. With one's heart filled with pure emotion, one should meditate on the Lord living in the spiritual world as he stands, walks, sits or sleeps and performs pastimes worthy of seeing. Then one should meditate on the different limbs of the Lord while he is performing various pastimes. Some of the pastimes are performed while he is standing. Some of the pastimes are performed while he is walking. Some of the pastimes are performed while he is sitting. Some of the pastimes are performed while he sleeps, like Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Karanodakshaya Vishnu, etc. etc. All these different pastimes are need to be meditated while looking into one posture of the Supreme Lord. Then it continues. Tasmil labda padam chittam sarva vaya samstitam vilakshayakshata samyujad ange bhagavato muni. The sage, having concentrated his mind on seeing the Lord with all his limbs, should concentrate on one limb of the Lord at a time. After perfecting one's meditation on the complete form of the Lord, then one should practice the meditation on each and every individual limb of the Lord. Complete form of the Lord is called dharana. Individual limb of the Lord is called dhyana. So thus, having described the whole form for meditation, Lord Kapila now described the meditation on the individual limbs from the next verse onwards. So this we call it as smaranam. It is also mentioned in the second canto of Bhagavatam. There is a beautiful description about dharana and dhyana. So one should firmly meditate with the intelligence on each limb, one after the other, starting from the feet up to the smiling face of the Lord. After practicing concentrating on one limb, one should give that up and proceed to the next limb as the intelligence gradually becomes purified. The purpose of meditating on each and every limb is to purify our mind and intelligence. After completing that meditation, then one should go to the next limb, next, like that. One should come up to the beautiful smile of the Supreme Lord. So this is called as smaranam, as part of bhakti. And as part of Astanga-Yoga, this is called as dhyanam. So now let us see how gradually one should raise one's meditation from the lotus feet all the way up to the lotus smile of their Lordship. So this is the first verse, the meditation on the two lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Sanchintayet bhagavatas charanara vindam vajrankuchasvasha sarorulalancha nadyam uttunga rakta vilasan nakachakravala Josna Libir Ahatamahad Prudayandakaram. Here it says that one should meditate on the Lord's lotus feet, marked with a thunderbolt, elephant gourd. Actually, this is thunderbolt, this is elephant gourd, flag, and lotus, which destroy the great darkness of the heart with the brilliance of the rays of his gleaming, raised red toenails. So here you see, as Lord Krishna deity we see in the temple, one feet is stable, other feet is slightly raised. When this feet raised, we will be able to see these toenails. These toenails are brightly shining with red color. That will destroy the darkness within the core of our heart. That is indicated. At the same time, while looking at the lotus feet of the Lord, we should meditate upon these different marks on the lotus feet of the Lord. One should meditate on the elephant gourd, Ankush, below the little toe of the right foot. This is the little toe, this is the right foot. And here is the Ankush, elephant gourd. And below the elephant gourd is a thunderbolt, Vajrayuda. Below the next toe is a lotus. Below the next one is the lotus. And below the lotus is a flag, Dvaja. And below the big toe is a barley corn. Here is supposed to be a barley corn. And then a chakra. And other items like such as umbrella and swastika mark, etc. etc. The foot is thus adorned with variety of marks. These are all the different foot marks are there in the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So, thus one should meditate on this for some time, then on this, and this, and this, like that each and every symbol one should meditate. After perfecting meditation each and every symbol, one should go to the next one. So it will take a lot of time. After completing the meditation, all the symbols on the two lotus feet, and then meditating on the toenails of the 2 feet of the Lord, then one should continue with this meditation. Echrausanishruta sarid pravarodakena tirtena murdhni adikritena shiva shivo bhut dhyatur manasamala shaila nisushta vajram dhyayat chiram bhagavatas charanara vindam. Then one should meditate continually upon the Lord's lotus feet. After meditating on the marks which are there on the soles, one should meditate on the 2 lotus feet. The water washing which the Ganga flows and makes the auspicious Lord Shiva, who holds the Ganga on his head, more auspicious. Lord Shiva, who is already auspicious, by holding Ganga, which washes Lord's lotus feet, makes Lord Shiva more auspicious. The Ganga which is coming from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, which is collected by Lord Brahma, with which Lord Brahma performs Abhishek of Lord's lotus feet, and then that water becomes Charanamrut, and holding that Charanamrut on his head, Lord Shiva, who is already auspicious, becomes more auspicious. The lotus feet acts as thunderbolt, which is released amongst the mountains of sins in the meditator's mind. Our heart, where mind is situated, is filled with lot of anarthas, lot of sinful desires. And on the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, there is thunderbolt. When we meditate on thunderbolt, just like Indra's Vajrayuda destroyed the mountains at one go, this meditation thunderbolt will destroy the sinful reactions which are there in our heart. So that is the purpose for which we need to meditate. Thus, after describing the sweetness of Lord's lotus feet, Lord Kapila now describes the power of his feet. Lord Shiva becomes additionally auspicious by placing the sacred water of the Ganga, which is flowing as the wash water from the Lord's feet on his head. Then Lord Shiva thinks that I have become fortunate. I have become more and more fortunate. Thus, a devotee meditates on the foot marked with the thunderbolt, being released upon a mountain of sins of the meditator. By meditating on thunderbolt, the sins are destroyed. The mountainous sins are destroyed. Then by meditating on the elephant gourd, the mind, which is like elephant, which is uncontrollable, gets controlled and goes in the right path. By meditating on the lotus, the Padma, one's mind becomes like a lotus flower, very peaceful, very beautiful. By meditating on the flag, one develops the kingdom of the mind, highest kingdom to the mind. The mind becomes attracted to the kingdom of Godhead, that is Vaikunta. By meditating on the flag and the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, the mind becomes attracted to journey back home, back to Godhead. By meditating on the barley corn, one gets the highest fame of being a devotee. Then by meditating on the umbrella, one becomes relieved from the tapatraya, Adhyatmika Klesha, Adi Bhautika Klesha, and Adi Daivika Klesha. And by meditating on chakra, one gets complete protection of the Supreme Personality of God. Just like Ambarish Maharaj protected from the fiery demon created by Dhurvasa Muni. So like this, by meditating on each and every individual limbs of the Lord, one gets purification of the heart, attachment toward the devotional service, and attachment toward the abode of the Supreme Lord Vaikunta, and one completely comes under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So like this, each and every verse very nicely presents. By one's meditation on the different body limbs of the Lord, gradually one's mind becomes purified and becomes attracted to the pastimes of Supreme Lord and develops attachment to attain perfection of one's life. So like this, there are many verses. We are already reached the end of the time. So we'll have a couple of minutes for some discussion if some devotees have anything. And the remaining verses we will discuss in the next class, and concluding the perfection of Astanga-Yoga in the next week on 12th of this month. So in between, couple of devotees raise their hands. They can also ask some questions for a few minutes, and then other devotees also can ask if they have any questions. Hare Krishna. You can unmute and ask. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandat.
Prabhuji, while mentioning the Vanaprastha and Sannyas, that time you were telling about that in chapter 28, you have you were telling about the performer of Ashtanga Yoga, and you said that he leads a life of complete renunciation and performs Ashtanga Yoga, and at the same time he practices bhakti also. Yeah, and then he attains Sayuja Mukti. But and sometimes he attains Srashti or Salokya Mukti. So when he performs bhakti, when someone performs bhakti, how he can attain Sayuja Mukti?
We will discuss next week, because next week discussion is all about that only. What will be attained by the Ashtanga Yoga practitioner. So for your information, for now I'll tell you. Practicing either karma, jnana, yoga is like performing activities with our gross body and subtle body. Practicing karma is like performing activity with our gross body. Practicing jnana or yoga is performing our activities with our subtle body. And practicing bhakti is like breathing. Are you getting?
Yes.
Can you perform any bodily activities without breathing?
No.
That means we cannot perform karma in its proper expected order without little bhakti in it.
Yes.
Same way, can we perform any activity to our subtle body?
No.
Without breathing?
Yes.
No.
Without
breathing we can't
cannot
perform anything.
Yeah, no, we cannot perform without
Same
breathing.
way, without little amount of bhakti, we cannot even practice jnana or yoga. Jnana, karma, jnana, yoga, all practiced in association with bhakti. Bhakti is an integral element which is not visible outside so much. It is like the breathing. We are breathing, but we are not conscious of our breathing. When we are performing activity, we are conscious of what we are doing, but we are not conscious of breathing. Like that, bhakti is an integral part of karma, jnana, yoga. So for your kind information, we are discussing about the karma, jnana, yoga as a traditional varnashram system. And after next week, we will be discussing bhakti, exclusive bhakti. what, how devotees practice bhakti. We are not talking about devotees as of now. We are talking about the karma practitioner, jnana practitioner, yoga practitioner, who also need to practice bhakti as an integral part, as a secondary item, just like breathing is performed unconsciously. It's like that.
Yeah. That means not only Kevala Bhakti, they are doing along with Bhakti other things also, karma and jnana, and therefore they don't get.
They are practicing karma, jnana, yoga along with little bhakti.
Little
That
bhakti.
is the
Yeah.
proper understanding. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you.
Okay. Other devotees? Okay. I have mentioned this. I mean, today's discussion will be special because the slides have all these beautiful photos in it. If we normally discuss there, we don't have the opportunity to show the slides, so we miss this. That's why I said. Anyway, I share all the slides with you. You can go through the slides at your leisure afterwards till whatever point we discussed. And in the next week also, you can see the slides for the next week discussion also. So,
Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji will have a yeah.
this photo you have displayed is very beautiful, but where this is Garbhodak Sagar, Sagar's photo.
Prabhuji, this photo we will discuss next week. We have not started discussion about that. If you have any questions about what we discussed till now, kindly ask. Okay. If there are
Prabhuji, no question, yeah. We'll have a short kirtan, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, we'll have short kirtan. So thank you very much for all the devotees for joining. So since it is rainy day, we could not meet, but anyway, we had this online platform. Thank you very much. We'll continue next week. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there's one question. There's one question in the chat box, Prabhuji. If you can just take that question.
Difference between gross body and subtle body. Gross body is made up of the fleshy body. Whatever fleshy body we have, it is made up of earth, water, fire, ether elements. And subtle body is made up of the subtle senses. We have 14 subtle senses within our personality. The 5 jnanendriyas, the 5 karmendriyas, and 4 antakaranas, man, buddhi, ahankara, chetana. So all these things, all these 14 things put together makes our subtle body. So that is the distinction between gross and subtle bodies. Yeah, meditation on the lotus feet means initially we need to meditate beneath the source. All the symbols are there. Then meditate on the lotus feet from which the Ganga manifested. It's like that, one after the other, one after the other. We will able to discuss. Next week we'll continue the further details. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Bhajanita Prabhuji, can you just do a little kirtan, Prabhuji? Can I request you to do kirtan?
Haribol, yes. Just give me a minute.
Haribol.